How many of you have ever watched a parrot for an extended amount of time? I've had the privilege of seeing blue and gold macaws across a lake in the Amazon rainforest, and sulfur-crested cockatoos up close and personal at a park in Sydney. I spent countless hours at home watching my budgies and days taking care of my brother's green-cheeked conure when he's out of town. One of the things that continually delights me is the ability of a parrot to manipulate items without hands. Whether that is with their beak or their feet depends on the situation, but watching a bird eat an almond like an apple out of their clawed feet never fails to delight me. Recently, I had my own crash course in manipulating items without hand. I broke my right hand and sprained my left arm. While I haven't eaten any almonds with my feet, I've definitely had to adapt, to wing it, one might say, and find alternate ways of doing things. I've learned about voice commands on my phone, so I could send text messages hands-free. I got good at opening doors with my elbows, and I learned to ask for lots of help. Putting on socks by myself was impossible for a couple weeks. Hopefully, most of you haven't had to face this exact situation, but I suspect this type of adaptability rings true to most librarians. We're used to making do with outdated or suboptimal equipment. We find ways to make the services we have work for the needs of our community. And we're no strangers to adversity. If I'm being honest, it's part of what I like about being a librarian. I like solving problems and adapting to new situations, even when they're difficult. The nice thing about winging it is that sometimes it turns out even better than what you originally planned. The conference this year is a great example of that. Originally, we were going to be at the Mountain America Expo Center, but unfortunately, before a conference of our size was able to sign the contract, a larger conference came along and booked the whole space. For a few weeks, I was in a panic. I had a joint conference with MPLA coming up, and I didn't have a space to hold it. Luckily, a spot opened up at the Salt Palace at a great rate, and now I'm able to host all of our out-of-town MPLA visitors in downtown Salt Lake City. I'd always been told the Salt Palace was out of our price range, so I actually feel really lucky that the Expo Center fell through and I had to adapt. I never would have ended up there otherwise. There are definitely times when problems are just problems. There's been very little upside to the situation with my hands, for example. But there are also real opportunities when you have to change course. For me, this year has been about trying to make the most of those changes in course. Hopefully there's a useful takeaway in all of that for you too. P.S. The way I broke my hand was actually pretty funny. I was in the back office at my library and I kept hearing a kid dribble a basketball into the vestibule. Each time I went out to ask him to hold the ball while he was in the library, he'd gone back outside. Finally, on the third time, I went outside to talk to him. Usually when I'm enforcing the rule with a kid, I try to incorporate a positive experience to help build back up the relationship. So when I went outside, I dribbled the ball with him for a little while. As we were dribbling, I started to feel pretty good about myself. I found I was able to bounce the ball between my legs and behind my back. So I decided to showboat a little bit and bounce the ball behind the kid's back and pick it up on the other side. Unfortunately, my legs weren't able to keep up with my hands, and I leaned too far forward, going for the ball. I landed on both hands, hard, and my momentum carried me forward into a roll. The kid was super sweet. He asked me if I was okay about 100 times and tried to help me up. As we went back into the library, he asked me if I was okay one more time. I assured him I was. I wasn't. And called after him, "Make sure you hold the ball while you're in the library. I don't want anyone getting hurt." Ironic. A week later, when I was back to working and sporting a cast on one hand and a brace on the other, he came over and asked me, "Am I kicked out for breaking a librarian's hands?" I think he was mostly joking, but also a little bit worried about it. I reassured him that he did nothing wrong and asked him if he wanted to sign my cast. He did.